how are you, by the way,
Hey,
Kevin
I'm doing
Dahlgren?
very good. Thank
Yeah.
you for having me on. I appreciate you. Uh,
Yes, I appreciate you. Yeah.
um, and yeah, I overheard what you were saying about the executive order. It's something
Uh-huh.
I'm very excited about. I ask people to set aside any personal feelings they may have on the president
Hmm.
and look at the policy.
Yes. Yes.
Look, so keep out the emotion
Mhm.
and just realize that all this is doing is pivoting from the housing first model to a recovery based model,
It's the only
which
thing that works.
it'll reallocate a significant amount of funds to help people get clean, which is the first step towards self sufficiency.
Absolutely.
So
You can. Yes, keep going.
yeah, so I'm
Preach.
just saying that, like, of course, a lot of our friends who have different ideologies than we do are like, how dare he? This is the most inhumane thing he's ever done. Well, I guarantee you, if Biden did the identical thing, they would be celebrating this.
Oh yeah, I couldn't agree
Celebrating it
more. If
because it,
if yeah,
yeah,
if Gavin Newsom or Joe Biden had said, "Hey, we're going to get the homeless people off. We're going to get them in addiction centers, and we're going to put them in places where they can get their mental health issues sorted out," they would be applauded. Oh, I would just like, huzzah, huzzah. And no, not now.
exactly. And so I
No,
just ask
so
people,
dumb.
look, this is bold. It's the boldest thing a president has ever done to try to fix homelessness. The first boldest, and bold doesn't always mean good, it just means bold,
Right, right.
was was when Obama in 2013 signed the Housing First bill,
Mm-hmm.
in which he promised to end homelessness in 10 years.
Oh
So that
God.
ended last year. And I like everyone to think, has homelessness ended? How are we doing?
I've been watching that we're going to end up homelessness in 10 years since at least 2010 in Portland.
Well, and I've actually lived through three of them, or within the social service system.
Yeah. Hmm.
I
Hmm.
worked in social services. The first time I ever heard that was just about 28, 29 years ago. And then by the second time it was coming around, I was like, whoa, wait a minute. This is not working. So it's frustrating. You know,
Hmm.
I, Here's the thing. I worked in social, the
Yeah.
second time it came around, I was working at a men's homeless shelter. My executive director and others were the ones who kind of were the architects of this new 10-year plan to end homelessness.
Oh.
They didn't have any plan. What they
Hmm.
did have is, well, what they did know is that after 10 years, no one was going to remember anyway. And so, and people got excited thinking, wow, we're going to end homelessness. That's great. And even though 10 years like seems like a long time, it's just a short enough amount of time where people are like, all right, well, I'm willing to commit billions of dollars to fixing this, you know, and it obviously doesn't work because there was no actual model, no plan whatsoever. And of course, this was extremely frustrating because I knew right then I needed to start talking about this because we were really misleading the public. We were,
It was just a money grab, wasn't it?
yeah, it was, and they never admitted some money grab. But then right after, these 10-year plans, it's when budgets just exploded. Shelters were opened up everywhere. Every little um,
Nonprofits have
nonprofit you
proliferated.
think about
NGOs came in. They just hoovered up all the money. All the
and
money.
yeah, and doing very, very niche type things, which sometimes can be good, but most of the time it's bad. Meaning, well, I can only work with this very specific demographic at this very specific way or something. And it
Hmm.
just doesn't work.
No.
And yeah, there's a couple nimble programs out there doing solid work, but for the most part, you know, um,
Oh.
we need to disrupt this entire social service system and just start over.
I agree, and I think Trump's plan is solid. It's not his plan; it's somebody else in his administration who definitely knows whereof he speaks, and I think that's probably
Absolutely.
Stephen Miller. And just super sharp people going, look, you got to get the people off the streets. You got to end the encampments. You cannot allow people to camp on the streets. And in
Well,
fact, in one of your videos with Wendy, she talks about living in Florida, and she says, I couldn't do this in Miami. They'd never let me
mhm.
because
Well,
they don't do that in
exactly.
Florida.
Um, we are a sanctuary city, so is Seattle, San Francisco, New York, kind of San Diego. I mean, it's kind of all over. I just got back from Los Angeles. That's like unimaginable. I mean, what I saw there.
Really? Tell
Yeah.
me about that.
Well, I went to Skid Row, been there a
Hmm.
couple times to film. I went there actually with a filmmaker, and we did a short documentary on homelessness on Skid Row, which is like the most legit feeling of third world I've ever felt when you go into Skid Row.
It's like Bangladesh, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just, I mean, it's so bad even cops don't drive through there. And not to mention, people are sleeping in the middle of the street. There's fights everywhere. Everyone has weapons. There's a lot of criminal activity, right? Um, how we had access, fortunately, is that we had befriended some of the kind of block leaders, the block mayors, and they liked
Really?
us. So they gave us exclusive tours and basically said, you can film everywhere but here. And there was very specific blocks. They said, please don't film this, but film everything else. And
What?
they're honestly they're probably up to no good. But the fact is we had
Yeah.
a lot of really good access too, where I was able to film all they're like there's this very big business of illegal stores. So first of all, in LA, it's really hard to get prosecuted for shoplifting, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Like you can steal like up to like 900.
$950.
Yeah,
Hmm.
which is an obscene amount of money,
Yeah.
right? When you think about it. The homeless are aware of this, and so what happens on Skid Row is there's all these people, they're the lowest level thieves. They go out, they steal as much as they can, and they sell it at, what are 20 cents to the dollar to a
Uh,
middleman who then uh, they have all these pop-up stores in Skid Row, usually these large tents, where they then resell it to other people. And it's not just the homeless, it's just low-income people or people on lunch who work nearby who would rather buy a 25-cent candy bar than a dollar candy bar, right? And there's like batteries and there's like uh, just a lot of health related products, a lot of shampoos. Just basically, they'll steal anything
yeah.
because it gets resold immediately. And for them, it's all profit because they didn't, you know, really uh, spend much money to obtain it. Right.
Right.
And the addicts, and I filmed this too. The way they got paid is they got paid in drugs. So they weren't even making money. They were just like, go out to steal for 2 hours to get a couple of fentanyl pills. And so what's interesting about these stores is on one side you'd see all the food and just a regular store type stuff, top
Uh-huh.
ramen and stuff. And on
Yeah.
the right you would see drugs. And
Oof.
I walked up to one and she goes, "What are you looking for?" I was like, "Whoa, this is crazy." And I was so surprised. I was like right there in front of me and I was thinking, "Where's all the police?" But the police don't come down there.
Yeah.
And I did manage to film it, but afterwards, this guy that knows me was like, "Man, you are lucky," because he pointed to these men in trucks with guns. They said they probably didn't notice you were filming, but if you did, they wouldn't have been too happy. And he actually said they would have probably just shot you. And I had no idea, but because they don't want to get caught, I guess. But
Mm.
so what I'm saying is that this criminality is allowed because there's really no enforcement there, certainly in that sort of 50 block radius, which is just
Mhm.
complete chaos. So,
So, by cracking down, as the Trump executive order puts it, cracking down on these homeless encampments, you do get rid of a lot of crime,
yep.
and so people can, women especially who are homeless. There are far fewer women who are homeless, but women who are homeless are predated upon all the time,
Hmm.
and they are scared every night. They can't sleep. They can sleep with one eye open.
They are.
I mean, it's just terrible.
I was downtown Portland at close to 3 a.m. this morning.
Mm.
Sometimes I go there in the middle of the night because of the trafficking. And while I didn't witness that tonight, there's a lot of vulnerable, symptomatic women that were just screaming,
Yeah.
half naked, running through the streets. They're just terrible, terrible things happen to women and a lot of young men on the streets, to be honest.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Um, that's sort of a I don't know if it's a newer phenomenon, but more I've been hearing about more. And I think
Hmm.
it's because a lot of the men, where it happens to, they'll never report it because they're embarrassed.
Of course. Oh
Uh,
yeah. I
so
saw a male hooker walking down on, in the Seattle area one time, and I looked at him. My husband goes, What's that kid doing?" I go, "That is a prostitute." I
mhm.
mean, just because I just knew, because he was slightly built, he was just the type. I
Yeah,
don't know. I mean, it was just, ugh.
it's
So
a it's a
getting rid of
desperation. So
it's absolutely, we got to get drugs, or I got to get
I,
a
I want
roof
to
over
really
my head.
quickly describe just something disturbing is when I see I call it legit trafficking because I mean, in many ways they're doing this against their will because they're chemically compromised, right?
Absolutely. Hmm.
Is if they are desperate for their next hit and willing to do anything, are they consenting? I think that's up for debate, but
Great
these
question.
I mean that's a good question, but here's the scary thing is multiple times, when I'm downtown, middle of it always happens early in the mornings. And you know why? It's because it's before work. And now let me explain before work. So these are married men with children, nice cars. They show up looking for by far the most vulnerable, dirtiest, whatever, generally female on the streets, and pay them a quick $10, $15 for a service. And for I guess that's sort of like this weird depraved kink they have where they live this normal life with a beautiful house and good job, work for the bank, but in the before work some mornings they're just in the mood to do something like that. And so you
Right.
see a lot of very, very nice cars. I find that fascinating. It's because, and the reason why I know this too is because I've then interviewed really about 100 homeless women who said, my most common customer isn't another homeless person, it's a well dressed man in a nice car. And I find that interesting.
It's depraved. No wonder nothing gets done.
Yeah.
I mean, it's providing a service to these guys. But if you are able to clear the homeless encampments away, you then immediately secure many people who are otherwise vulnerable. Now, in Washington, D.C., tell me what you think about this idea. Trump's, the feds have gone in. Okay. And first of all, he ordered the homeless people to get out. I mean, which the day before he went in, get out, we're coming. Okay. Because a lot of homeless people can do that. They just don't choose to. Okay. Second thing was people who were picked up for whatever reason for illegally camping in the district were told you can go to a shelter, or you can go to addiction help, and if you choose neither of those, you're going to jail. And those were the three options they had. What do you think of that?
Well, first, I do agree you have to nudge a person who's ambivalent in the right direction. I mean, it's called assertive outreach, right? You can't wait for them to come around because it's almost never going to happen. It
Right.
happens like 5% of the time.
Hmm.
And you have to be a little more assertive, right?
Okay.
It's more of an empowerment move rather than waiting 10 years for them to miraculously come around. Okay. Um, I've never personally seen the benefit in just jailing a person, but I also understand if every effort's been made, what other options do we have?
Hmm.
So like here's how I'm gonna answer this. I still believe we need to make every effort in the world. We don't know how they ended up there, what their trauma is, what's going on. Lead with compassion, lead in that, godly way of like, look, this is a person, this is a human. We might be annoyed and frustrated with them for whatever reason,
Yeah,
but we
sure.
still have, I believe, an obligation as a human to try to really genuinely try to help them, which means be a little proactive and be a little assertive, right? Because there's
Yep.
nothing compassionate with allowing a person to live on the streets. If all else fails, of course, jail is really the only option, right? But I don't want to jump to that immediately. I feel like because there's such a lack of outreach out there, if we at least focused on that piece, jail would be almost completely non-existent. Because if we actually did our job out there, we would only need that nuclear option
Hmm.
3% of the time,
Hmm.
right?
And you, Kevin, who do you work with? You, I Heart Seattle. Is that what it's called? I Heart
No,
Seattle?
I work
You're by yourself.
well, yes, but I work very closely with Tara Fall. She's a phenomenal
Oh yeah,
photojournalist.
she really. Oh, she just. I just saw one of her posts today.
Are you
Just
just
like unbelievable.
mind blown? Unbelievable. I
Great
think
follow.
she's one of the finest photojournalists in America, because
I'd say so.
photos in many ways can be more powerful than videos. And I'm kind of
Completely.
like the video guy, right? I do all the
Hmm.
videos. So her and I kind of teamed up over a year ago and just started doing this incredible work. And I
Hmm.
think people really responded favorably to it because we were blending photos, videos, storytelling
Yeah.
to really get, and then I added this extra level where I started doing meta photos of her taking the photo to show what the background looked like of what we were in the middle of while doing the work. And it was just this all these different layers. And we did all these posts, and it's just really cool. And she's great to work with, and she's well worth a follow. She's out
Absolutely.
there every day doing solid work. And
There's not a lot of money in that, I suppose. And so follow those guys and follow
well,
Kevin on his
yeah,
page too.
being an independent journalist is tough, but I actually just spoke with Tara this morning, and we both agree, what we do is a cause. We care about this. We do
Hmm.
this to raise awareness. We do this to humanize people, but also we
Right.
want our blocks, we want our parks back, we want our community back,
Yes.
right? And
Right.
there's that delicate balance between lead with compassion but hold people accountable, right? and and it's true, like as an independent journalist, there's virtually no money because we're not employed by anybody, but we
Right.
care deeply about what we do. And we're very fortunate that we have a large following and very high engagement. So a lot of people follow our stuff. But of course,
If you were employed by somebody, you would not be able to do half the stuff you
you
do.
know, it's so true.
I can
Like
tell you that.
there's a few people I'd probably work for, like media type companies, but for the
Mhm.
most part, I get so much more done just being an independent journalist because I don't
I
have to
agree.
answer to anybody. And uh I don't have to be biased. I can really just be like, hey, this is the reality.
Uh-huh.
Let you all decide and fight over what you think about this, right?
Okay. Yeah.
And I think
No,
that's really important. I've always been a believer in just show, showing the reality of the streets and letting the other people decide what they think and to have that debate, right?
one of the
Because
things they're coming to get you,
there's always
Kevin.
there's always two ways of looking at something. So I try to the best of my ability, just show what it's like and just let other people decide. It's not my
Mhm.
place really. I don't like to get into the infighting that happens when I post stuff and I see
Yeah.
thousands of comments going back and forth of people yelling at each other. That's just like not my thing. I'm just out there
You
to
just put it up there, let everybody react, and you don't need to read the comments. Here's because you don't need to. You already know what the story is. So I mean, it's not like you can be better informed by somebody
yeah,
fighting with you over what your come from is, if you will. One of the things that you just mentioned in 2013, the Housing First measure, and in the Trump EO, which is now going to be the superstructure for I think how other cities and areas look at the homeless issue, you have a step away from that. People will take responsibility for getting into housing themselves because there's going to be a variety of things that they'll be able to do to liberate capital to build these things and reduce regulation to build places, but also because
correct.
homeless people are people. And you're not going to believe this. Like that guy who said, hey, you $97,000 a year. That guy was totally with the program. That guy was like on it, right? He didn't appear to be high at all when you were
Yeah.
talking to him.
And
And he totally knew what was happening.
yeah, that interview specifically struck a really big chord with people when that data came out that we had spent $724 million, right?
Yeah.
And when I mentioned that to a few people outside the industry and what we do, they're like
Mhm.
724 million for the United States. That seems like a lot. I was like, no, 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 no.
That's
Portland.
just story. Oh, Portland, just Portland. Well, in California, they have failed to find $2 billion. $2 billion is gone. It's sort of like the fire aid money. Just, we're just going to give it to NGOs and we're not actually going to ask them to do anything for it. It's like there's an entire army of Stacey Abrams there with their hands out going, I'd like to have a $2 billion. Thank you very much. And they've lost $2 billion. Nobody knows where it is. They
Yeah.
can't pass an audit. They don't know where, they had no measurements by which they would be judged for successes and anything. So this Trump thing is not housing first. How about getting better first?
Yep.
Stop the harm reduction stuff. Where you encourage people to take drugs, you give them the ways to get high, and then they sleep or bend over like a taco on the streets. This is just really truly one of the more offensive things about the way we treat homeless people. These are people.
They are.
And yeah, they're there, but you've allowed them to be there. They're yeah, go ahead. You know more than I do.
Well, no, I'm sorry.
You do.
I do mean to apologize. There's such a huge pet peeve for my haters. I always hear, wow, Kevin really hates the homeless.
Oh, yeah.
Wow. How dare Kevin? How dare he be exploitative? All this stuff. I'm like, no one else is doing this. We are documenting the streets and you're the ones ignoring them, not getting the job done, and people are dying all around us, right?
Yes.
These are your policies, not our policies that are doing this. And also the homeless have actually spoke. I've interviewed several hundred homeless the last couple of years and asked them, are you better off under these policies, right? And like 90% say, no, of course not. We are miserable. You know what they want? Do you know what a high percentage of the homeless want? They want responsibility. They want structure. They want support, and they want direction. They do. You know how I know this? Because I've talked to thousands of them, but they don't do that because under the umbrella of like the homeless industrial complex or, progressive type cities, they enable these individuals to the point of dependency. They treat them like a protected class that is incapable of doing anything on their own because they're, whatever, victims of capitalism is what they said, right? But remember, these are just people that fell in hard times for a variety of reasons. Sometimes it's their fault and they could have been asking for it. And other times it's like, I got a divorce, I got cancer, I made bad decisions. I mean, there's just a million reasons. I have childhood trauma. And even the ones that are like truly up to no good, we have to make every effort to try to find out what the heck's going on with these people and try to help them and break that cycle. But back to what you just said about this missing $2 billion, that's kind of by design. I don't know if most people know this, but most NGOs write it. It's a very strict thing that they write into their grants. No metrics, no measurable results. We will not talk about, it's called the who, what, when, where, and why, which means they will never say who they work with, when they work with them, where they go, what they do, and if they were successful or not. And they've been doing this for decades. And how they justified this was, these are homeless people, they're complex, and our success rate is really hard to really track. And I call BS. It is, right? There is a way of tracking this. And they do this because if there were required measurable results, we would see very, very low numbers, and it would force them to change. And so I'm a big believer in immediately requiring oversight of all NGOs right now. If I were king for a day, or if say President Trump was listening, I would be like, President, we need oversight. Okay. Make it bipartisan oversight. I don't care. Have a table of 3 Democrats and 3 Republicans, but like make it where every dollar spent is justified to a point where, okay, was this a good decision or not? Now, if it wasn't, at least now we know what not to do. So they're not necessarily in trouble. Well, it's just we tried this and it doesn't work.
At least we know not what to do. Kevin, they've decided this it hasn't been decades that this has been going on. This is only maybe, I guess maybe 2 decades. You're right.
It's about, I've been doing this a long time. My very first experience working with the homeless was, I volunteered at Bologna Joe's in the middle 1980s. Right.
Well, but that was a private thing, and the government was not involved in that. And then all of a sudden the government gets involved because for whatever reason, there's a whole bunch of money that's coming. And then they give all the money. And then suddenly there's money in it for NGOs or their friends at the friends of elected people. And that's when this whole thing just blew up. And all of a sudden the Union Gospel Mission, which has been the most successful at getting people off the streets and set right and then in the life of a normal human being, all of a sudden they're going, oh, wait, what is going on here? You're not helping people.
Yeah, and I appreciate you for mentioning them. I've actually had a good experience with UGM. I've had very good experience, honestly, with all faith-based programs. Here's the thing about faith-based. They believe in accountability,
Yeah,
right?
that's right.
They truly, with all their heart, love these people, but they also don't put up with any crap.
Yeah. Well,
And
that's all right.
I worked with these people, or not them, but I actually used to work at the Salvation Army,
Uh-huh.
right?
Yeah, sure.
And here's the frustrating thing about faith-based programs is they do amazing work, but NGOs have completely rejected them. When I worked in social services, there
That's
was a
right.
very strict rule that said never refer a person to a faith-based program. Do you know that? So
Whose rule is that?
most of the nonprofits I worked for, so like when
Okay.
I was in a position where my job was to find a homeless person and they would say, what options do I have, Kevin? And so then I'm considered, the expert, be like, well, you can go here, here, or here.
Mm-hmm.
We weren't supposed to mention the faith-based programs because they were anti-faith-based. I
Of
always
course they
did
were.
because I said these are adults and let them decide. And the
Yeah.
reason why they didn't like faith-based is because faith-based programs are generally much more strict, drug free. You're not even generally allowed to smoke.
Right.
Sometimes they have you work in their thrift shops. It's called work therapy.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, of course, it's not for everybody. Of course, but let them treat the homeless like an adult and let them decide whether they think it's a good fit or not. Right. And so I always used to do that. Unfortunately, I sometimes had to do it on the down low because my employers were like not happy because they always considered faith-based programs as being fascist, which is so crazy to even think. And and it's
See,
frustrating. So
when God's in charge, people are held more accountable. That's just
mhm.
what everyone in recovery says. Well, in whatever form I believe that higher power to be, it really does help getting out of the gutter. It really does.
It does,
And
and it's not for everybody. I work for these programs,
sure.
and sometimes even I will admit they're a little maybe too strict. You
Hmm.
know, like a person who's gone to hell and back and had the worst life ever to go to a program where you just hear no, 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 no. That's a really hard thing to adjust to, and sometimes I believe there needs to be sometimes a little flexibility just for the own person's trauma. But overall, I think they do really solid work.
They do good work. Uh, I'm familiar with City Impact and the Tenderloin in San Francisco, and
Mhm.
all of a sudden, they've done amazing work over the decades, and they watch over. There were more than 3,000 kids in the Tenderloin, and these locked up in these little mini apartments. So we would do things in the summer for the kids and that kind of deal, and take food and talk to people and all that stuff. But they were getting really upset because all of a sudden San Francisco started putting all of these really high powered, groups that were homeless groups, and they were just icing out City Impact, who's had the record of success for decades now. It's just unbelievable.
They have a very high success rate. That's what people don't talk about. The success rate of faith-based are way higher than anybody else. And you know who else has the highest success rate?
Who?
Privately funded programs, not publicly funded,
Mm-hmm.
privately funded. They're the ones that are also killing it. And they're also the ones that the local governments absolutely hate, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Faith-based and privately funded. The only way we're going to end this crisis is to find that balance and everybody work together. But think about the program Bobby Lakes Hope Center run by Helping Hands. They're privately funded. Do you remember how much pushback the county had for not days, but years on just adamantly being absolutely against this opening up into a privately funded program? Literally the
No.
county chair was just like, it is not going to happen under my watch.
Where,
So
which
finally,
city are we in? Are we in Seattle or Portland now?
Portland.
Or okay. Okay.
So they finally opened. They've been very successful. They've done solid work. Very proud of them. And here's the thing about privately funded programs: they believe in results.
Right.
It's no different than being publicly traded. If you don't get the job done, your stock is going to go to zero, right?
Yeah, you have a board of directors to whom you are responsible. That's for sure.
Like,
Tell me about harm reduction. Keep going. I mean, talking about this, but I like you to fold in the harm reduction and the safe supply stuff that they're talking about in Seattle.
well, I mean, I'd say it's the reason I get the most hate is my problem with what harm reduction does. So, there, it's a very non-judgmental approach to working with a person in the middle of their drug addiction, where the theory is, we give them clean supplies, and this could be, needles, pipes, straws, foil, Narcan, ointment, sometimes condoms, just as a way of saying, we're not going to tell you to ever quit or even encourage you to consider quitting, but we're going to give you loving support and giving you clean supplies in the hopes that someday you are ready, right? Unfortunately, that almost never happens. And to the day I die, I will say this: I will never, ever be okay with handing a drug addict a pipe, straws, or foil to get high. I don't see how this is reducing harm whatsoever. I've always said I can wrap my head around needle exchange because it prevents HIV and AIDS, right? That makes sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
But people have almost completely stopped using heroin and they're using fentanyl, which you don't need needles. You just smoke it off of tinfoil. Okay. So I absolutely hate when I see these things handed out to people who lack critical thinking and rational thought. I mean, I've witnessed this hundreds of times where this person is just so close to death and so far gone, completely out of it. And these smiling harm reduction workers hand them the tools that continue to get high. And more importantly, and something I've actually filmed about a dozen times, is 20 minutes after they received the supplies, they got high and they overdosed.
Yeah.
And about 5 of those incidents, they died, which I filmed. Now, of course, we tried to help them. I wasn't like a national
of course, yeah.
geographic photographer watching the antelope being killed by the lion, right?
Right.
I literally was like, let's call 911, do this, do this, do this, right? But I was there and I filmed workers, give them the supplies. He used the supplies. He overdoses, he dies. And it happens so often. And it just doesn't make any sense to me why you would do this. Like, there's got to be a line that you should never cross, and they cross it, unfortunately.
Here's a guy, Michael Schellenberger, took this guy's story a couple years back. Listen to this.
Where are you from?
Louisiana, Texas area.
How long you been in San Francisco?
Since June. If you're gonna be homeless, it's pretty fucking easy here. I mean, if we're gonna be realistic, they pay you to be homeless here.
When you said that San Francisco pays people to be homeless, what did you mean by that? Did you mean that literally?
Yeah. I mean, I get $620 a month, dude.
From general assistance,
yeah.
Or how was that hard to get?
Fucking phone call, bro.
Wow.
Fucking phone call. 200 food stamps and $620 cash a month.
Wow.
Forget about it. Why wouldn't I do it? You know, it's fucking free money, dude. Yeah. This right now is literally by choice. Literally by choice. Like, why would I want to pay rent? I'm not doing shit. I got a fucking cell phone that I have Amazon Prime and Netflix on. We used to battle with the cops. Now, it's like the cops it's like they're your neighbor, you know? The cops told us this morning, like, oh, it'd be easier if you guys packed up in the morning. We wouldn't have to come out here. And I'm like, well, what are you talking about? He's like, pack up your shit in the morning. I'm like, why? You know? He's like, oh, okay. And then went on. His 2 kids came up and they're like, hey, do you guys know where to get any Oxycontin? They're like, I'm 15 and I'm 16, you know, like, I'm an old school junkie, you know? And I'm like, well, look, dude, I'm gonna tell you right now, like, you're not gonna get Oxycontin out here on the street. I was like, how much money are you trying to spend? And they were like, we got $40. And I said, okay, this is what I'm gonna do. I am going to take your money, and I went and I got him fentanyl. And I fucking brought it back and I set it down in front of him and I said, this is a gram of fentanyl. This is enough to kill 6 people that have never used it. what I do to get high is this much, and I showed him how much I do. I was like, I'm keeping your money, and now I'm gonna teach you how to save each other's lives, because you're not gonna fucking stop. I can't steer you away from doing it, but the best thing I could do for you now is give you real drugs and show you how to do it properly and show you how to save your friend's life. And I showed him how to pull up Narcan and how to inject each other with the Narcan needle in case they died. I needed the money. Let's be honest.
I mean, honest to goodness. I mean, that was a while. I don't think I'd seen that one before, where he's selling the drugs and teaching a 15 and 16-year-old how to use them. That's what you have when you allow homeless encampments on the streets and easily. I mean, I'm sure that somebody who's, motivated to get drugs will go find them somewhere, but you don't need to make it easy for them.
They're future customers. I mean, it's scary, when you're a drug dealer, you don't really have any scruples. And,
Right.
I've seen multiple adults deal to, or at least offer drugs to middle schoolers on public transportation. It's actually a pretty common practice. I have filmed dealers that lurk outside of middle schools and parks, hoping to find that one vulnerable kid that is just having a rough day. And it's just much more common than people realize, and I'm a big believer in, prosecuting the dealer, not really the user, just kind of, at least with the user, give them every opportunity to succeed. But the dealer, they've crossed this line that I'm just not okay with,
Of course. And that's what they're talking about in the CO, going after people who sell the drugs. They're talking about forcing the camping ordinances so that you get all these, as much as you can possibly do, get all the encampments off. Because nobody's safe if you've got people in there. They've all got weapons. And who can blame them? Would you want to be just helpless in a tent? Yeah. No, thanks. I don't think so.
Yeah, look, I'm personally completely okay with the homeless having weapons. I mean, a majority of the time, a high percent are they're just to protect themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And, the weapons are usually knives. I've seen more guns the last year. But, here's the thing. If you're a homeless female, it's not if, but when. Yeah. That is guaranteed.
You will be raped. You will be raped.
It is so common. It would be surprising to hear that it hasn't happened. And ask anybody on the streets, and it's just a very, very common thing. Now, it's important to also note that a majority of homeless men are not bad people and not doing this, right? There's a lot of good people, but there's always those bad seeds, right?
Sure. Yeah.
And the reason why you never read about the prosecution or a homeless guy going to jail for this is because there's a strict rule in the streets to never call the cops, regardless of the crime. You do not get the police involved. But what they do is street justice. So if a homeless person has crossed a certain line that's made other people very unhappy, there's ways of dealing with it. And one of the ways is killing them and throwing them into the river. Last month, over 11 homeless bodies were found in the Willamette River. It was about 11. Not all homeless, some were just unidentified, so probably homeless, but it was 11 or 12 in 1 month. And that's the very common practice. I did a few interviews of people who didn't want to say much, but they're like, oh yeah, well, that person was asking for it. And they were completely okay with them no longer being around. So the most common reason why they'll do that is, if they steal from them or if they sexually assault someone they like. And that's usually a death sentence unless you can pay them off. And believe me or not, but that's actually a very common thing on the streets is street justice, right? And I don't agree with street justice. I think everyone deserves their day in court, right? But, they kind of just get right down to the this is, on the streets, it's very life or death anyway, so.
Let's go back here. Let's go where we started.
To Wendy. I adore Wendy.
And here's Wendy again. Here's that photo of her. And I thought this might be that. Maybe that's. Here we are again. Wendy is awesome. Can you tell us what Wendy's doing these days?
So this is a few years ago. This was really my video that just really, really blew up. And why it did
Amen.
was it just struck a chord with the public. You know, a couple hours after I posted it, Elon Musk had found it. And once he acknowledged it, like I woke up the next morning and my views were like insane. And that's when, you know, every media outlet really wanted to talk to me about this because she basically said homelessness is a piece of cake. And it really just kind of changed everything. And the beautiful ending to the story is that she has, I think, 10 brothers and sisters. And they thought she may have been dead. And so this video went so viral, they saw the video and said, oh my gosh, that's my sister, right? They came to Portland. They live in another state. I think it was Idaho. I might be wrong. It's been a few years. And they drove in their RV. And this was about 2 weeks after this exploded. And then I walked around with the family looking for Wendy and found her and shot this incredible video of this beautiful reunion, hugging, crying. Oh my God. And she's the oldest sister. And, you know, she was the one sort of black sheep sister that made a few poor decisions when she was younger and ended up on the streets, you know, but they just absolutely adore her. Long story short, she admitted she doesn't want this lifestyle anymore. She went with them. She left the state. They dropped her off literally the day they arrived into treatment, right? And it was a beautiful, beautiful story. And again, this was now been a few years, so I haven't had any update with Wendy in months now. But I stayed very close to her family, and I was really interested. And I wrote a article on where Wendy is now, and I did this about maybe a year ago. So there's that somewhere in my archives. But that was a really cool story. And this is the perfect example because I got a lot of hell for posting this video, especially from the nonprofit across the street, right? And
wow.
So here's the thing. If I had not posted this video, her family wouldn't have found her and she wouldn't have gotten sober and off the streets. Okay. Right. I want you to know, I want you to hear this. Every day between Tara and I, every day, it's like every day, a family member reaches out to us and says, oh my God, that's my son. That's my daughter. That's my mom. That's my dad. It happens so often. And it's because homeless people don't stay in contact with their family. They're estranged, whatever happens. And it is very common. I get everyday messages saying, will you keep a lookout for so-and-so and so-and-so? And so what people don't realize is even though, you know, we think ourselves independent journalists, we spend a third of the time looking for missing friends and family members because we happen to know everybody out there. And so, and we don't do this for money. We wish we made something because it's expensive doing this, but we spend hours and hours every week just simply looking for missing people because nobody else really is. And so I just want people to know that this isn't just about the journalism, is that we've become like people finders, and we've been pretty successful, which me as success is, you know, about 30% of the time, if someone reaches out to us and says so-and-so is missing, we find them. And I think that's probably a pretty good stat considering that on the streets, people disappear forever. And we get them connected to the family. Sometimes they stay in touch, sometimes they don't, but it's like it's always a very cool thing when we can connect those two, you know? And so that's kind of a big part of what we do.
This little kid, this little
oh yeah, that's the Dust Bowl child.
Who is that? Who's that baby?
So I found that kid in the middle of Central Oregon desert. And this was in Deschutes County. I was out there in the middle of the desert, right? Sure. Doing outreach, and found this less than 2-year-old in diapers run up to me. And then 3 other kids, a little bit older, but not much, still pretty darn short, like 3 maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And I found this homeless family, 3 RVs, bunch of adults in the middle of nowhere. No running water, no electricity, no plumbing, right? And that picture really struck a chord with people because they called this the Dust Bowl child of 2023. I think I took that photo 2 years ago. And it really kind of struck a chord with people that like this actually is going on. Now, I think what really kind of upset people is that the local providers actually knew this family was out there, but they were still on a wait list where they were like number 105 or something. Mm-hmm. And I have to ask, how is it that they don't qualify faster when you see that, right? Like, how are they number 100?
Bump the line.
So I spoke to like one of the moms, and she was frustrated thinking, and I didn't know her whole story, but she did admit we want to be indoors. So why was it they were on these crazy wait lists? I mean, it made no sense to me. And that kind of really upset a lot of people. So, and one of the children I had filmed, incredibly, this is the crazy story. The parents casually mentioned, we don't really know who the parents are. We just adopted them. He wandered into the camp one day, and I'm like, they what? Wait, you don't know who he is? He's not related to you? So I wrote this whole post saying, is this like a missing, like what the heck is going on, right? And so people investigated that, and then here's the crazy thing is 1 week after I had filmed that, a homeless man 30 feet away was mauled to death by homeless dogs.
Oh, geez.
From the camp right next to him, which obviously would tell me these kids were at high risk of that happening.
Of course. Yes, absolutely.
This was a sketchy place. And
drugs.
a lot of drugs, a lot of criminal activity, and nowhere near appropriate for children. Completely insane. And the fact that the person, he unfortunately, this dog was owned by a homeless woman, and a lot of dogs in the streets are kind of trained to attack and kill, and I just keep thinking, what if this kid walked 30 extra feet? What would happen? And that's really crazy to think. So this is kind of why I do this, is I'm trying to raise awareness to show that we need to really dramatically improve our system,
and not the one we have now.
Well, yeah, I get accused a lot of being a hater of the social service system. Like, well, no, I just have high expectations of you. You need to start treating this like a cause, not a job, because this is a humanitarian crisis. Start freaking treating it like one. That's all I've ever said.
Stop looking at it as a way to make money.
Well,
there's nothing wrong with making money. You just like this is not a for-profit kind of a deal here, but you're using that. You're doing it as a for-profit.
Yeah, and
you're making money on these people.
Exactly. And there's of course a lot of people that I wouldn't say they're working necessarily super hard, but I don't think in their mind they're thinking we're making money. But what they're thinking is I have a job. Right?
Exactly. They're not going to solve the problem if they continue to get a job,
because it'll work themselves out of a job. And so it's important for people to understand that I don't believe a majority of the people in social services, even the ones I don't agree with, aren't just thinking, ha, 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 we're making money. But what they are thinking about is I have stability. I have a job. I have a 401k. Why would I want that to change? Because now they have stability. And so all I have to say to that is this is a humanitarian crisis. And I'm sorry, we have to work you out of a job. But then you will need to pivot, because here's the thing that will always be needed in this world is retention and preventative care. So that means once we solve the crisis, we get everyone off the streets, we're going to still need those people to keep people off the streets and prevent people from, leading down that road towards addiction and whatever, how they end up on the streets. So you see, there will always be retention and prevention. That's something
Yeah.
we'll always need. That is a safety net I will always strongly support.
Well, they have to be in line with that mission, though, Kevin. And I think
And I
most
don't
people
think they
aren't.
are.
Most people in those NGOs are not.
They're not. And, a lot of it is because they don't think about things in that kind of sort of holistic way.
Mm.
It's more of like, our goal is to do this.
I have to have so many contacts this month. Sure, I'm not going to do anything for that person, but I can report that I had X number of contacts.
Well, you know what?
And all of a sudden, woo, yes.
I would rather they have one meaningful contact a day than 25 BS contacts, right? One meaningful contact where you made a real difference, that there's a good chance you're going to break the cycle of homelessness or addiction. Because even one a day, if everybody was doing this, even in 1 year, you would see this dramatic change.
Oh yeah,
dramatically.
Well, I think when you stop paying people to be homeless, it's going to stop.
Well, that doesn't help. I mean, a lot of communities do that, unfortunately, and that's, of course, we could talk about that for another hour, and that's pretty frustrating.
Yeah, it is. We'll do that next time, I think. Kevin Dahlgren, thank you. I just want to add one thing here. I know you and I both know Angela and Angela Todd over at PDX Real, who did this video.
You are mentally ill.
Where's Ice?
You are mentally ill.
Supporter.
Wow.
Where's Ice?
Easy.
Let me call Ice
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah, I've seen that.
You know this chick? I mean, you've seen it. I mean,
yeah, I've seen it. There's a lot of emotions are very high right now, and there's definitely a lot of division. People don't always like me saying this, but I truly believe we got to find a way to all work together.
True.
I truly am not a hater. Like I have faith, and I might get irritated and frustrated with a person, but I know I don't hold any ill will towards anybody. I really, truly just want people to find a way to work together.
Could you talk to her so she'd work together with other people? That'd be nice, instead of calling some guy with dogs in the dog park a racist or a nut or some person who's unworthy of her respect. None of her business. Anyway,
generally speaking, people like her, you're not going to change their minds. They're pretty out there. But I just, I hate the division. At the end of the day, I'm a big believer in loving thy neighbor, which means I don't have to agree with you ideologically. But at the end of the day, there has to always be, hopefully, some level of, it doesn't even have to be respect, but just politeness, something.
Yeah, just comity.
Civility.
Civility, comity.
I mean,
togetherness.
You want that, but you don't really get it, and it's fine. It's disappointing. And I know emotions are high, but I've done this forever. Emotions are always high about something. I mean, it's just, if it's not this, it's something else. I mean, come on.
Keep some perspective, I think, is what you're saying.
But whatever. And so, I just kind of I keep my head down. I keep doing the work. I truly wake up every morning telling myself, how am I going to make a difference today? I'm really going to try.
Yeah.
And I do love what I do, but it can be challenging because, and I don't mind that it's time consuming. Like I was downtown 4 a.m. this morning, but it's difficult work. And, that's why I ask people to consider following my Substack.
Yeah, please do.
I write, it's where I'm able to write long form articles, video, photos. And there's my sub right there. And people, if they think I'm worth it, can actually subscribe at $12 a month. And it means a lot to me because I probably spend at least $1,000 a month just on the tiny things for the homeless. And I'm not even adding all the other things like the gas and the time and the edits because I care about this. But this is like a really good way to support my work while also getting you a deliverable where you're actually receiving something for it. Rather than just donate to me,
Truth on the Streets by Kevin Dahlgren.
Yeah. And that would just mean a lot. And, because I care about what I do and I want to keep doing this. And so thank you for that. Allowing me to self-promote for just a second, but I appreciate that.
That's quite all right. No, it's awesome. You do good work. Thank you so much for coming back on the Adult in the Room podcast. You're a jewel, and God bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Well,